Hello there. So today I'm going to be talking to you about a project that I did um, titled Analytic System for the Performance Evaluation of Sales Representatives at a minor baseball league company. So in this project, I wanted to use data analytics to select the best suited candidate for promotion to manager out of 7, sales reps or possible candidates. And so the goal was to use a system that will be able to predict the most suitable employee based on objective metrics, technical metrics like sales, conversion, and then that coupled with subjective measures like peer review, manager review of how their peers saw their performance. And so analytics has been proven that analytics, is the most effective method for predicting, future performance of managers. Of course, um, that also has to include the qualitative and quantitative features. For example, you need an all-round person who is a good leader. So while we prioritize data, we also have to consider other factors like soft skills and how they're able to lead and interact with their team. And so I finally arrived at a weighted sum, which takes a weighted score for each and every one of those objective and subjective um, uh, metrics, and then comes up with a final score. And from that score, um, the, the most probable or the ideal candidate was selected according to Archive et al. 2016. And so this has been seen to be the best method to to select a candidate for promotion. And so let's head on to the project itself, the data. So what we had was we had some data, um, sales performance data of the 7 employees. Of course, here you have got, we had more information here on the left that is in red, but I did not use most of that information that is in red because it is just demographic information. Some of it, such as age and gender, this has shown it is known that this does not really predict performance. So I did not include some of these features. Even the salary itself, I didn't include it. Only the years and then the ID, just for purposes of knowing who is who. But demographic information is known from literature to show that it doesn't predict performance. And so the data that we had the absence. So this is what you could use to measure reliability, to see how dependable the employee is as a manager, the number of clients they had, the individual sales that they had over 2 years, and then the group sales that they had over those 2 years. And so this is the ranking, peer ranking of their leadership skills according to their peers. And so these are one of the key features that are that were in the provided metrics. And then from this column going to the right, these are derived or calculated quantities that I calculated myself. And so you can see that we have several metrics that we wanted to use, and all of them have got different scales. So one of the first things that I had to do is normalize all this. That is, converting all of these metrics into a scale that is linear and a scale that is similar for all of them. So when you have, instead of having such numbers like $14,000 worth of tickets, I wanted to convert this into a scale of 1:10, and so I came up with a sales metric, and that sales metric is actually the total sales actually of the individual from the individual sales and the group sales, and then the sales score was derived from a combination of these two, which is really just a normalization of the individual and group sales, and from that came up with the sales score. And so and then I also came up with a leadership score. The leadership score is also based on the ranking how much the employees were ranked, and then the dependability score, that is based on the number of days absent. So the more the number of days absent, the less the leadership score. So basically that is how I came up with the scores for the individual in 3 categories. So all these metrics are combined into 3 categories. So sales is considering individual and group sales, leadership score, peer ranking, dependability is assessing the number of days absent. And so these were condensed into 3 categories. And then from those, we came up with a total weighted score. So the way that I came up with the total weighted score was the sales, since it's the most important part of the business, it contributed 40%. And then the leadership, since they're going to be a manager, contributed 35%. And then their dependability contributed 25%. So this is how I came up with the weighted sum. I also came up with some extra additional metrics such as sales per customer. Why did I come up with this? This is because there are limitations in the data. For example, you notice that this candidate number 3, they had 0 sales in 2019. That's probably because they had left the company, or they were not, they were absent, or something happened to them. And so to analyze the efficiency of the candidate, while at the same time taking into account discrepancies or missing data, the fact that some employees were not able to work all the years, I came up with the sales per customer. So this is conversion. It shows us how efficient the salesperson is, because it's not just a matter of how much they've sold, but how effective are they at selling, how effective are they at closing. And then of course to cater for the discrepancies in the number of years. That is, some clients, some reps have been in the company for 2 years, some for 6 years. As you can see in the example of rep 2 and rep 4, there's a large discrepancy in the number of years. So of course total years is going to be affected as well. And so to cater for that, I came up with the sales per annum metric, which actually shows how effective the salesperson is at closing their deals. And so after coming up with total weighted scores, this is the graphic, the metric that shows this is the employee IDs from 1 to 7. So you can see that number 1 had the largest weighted score and overall, while its number 2 had the lowest. Of course, you see that number 3 and 4 were really close, but generally that was how the result came out, where number 1 had the largest scores. And so just zooming in more, to zoom in more, we could see that candidate number 1 had the highest sales score. And so because this has got the largest weight, it's likely that they have the highest total weighted score. This is even though in the leadership score, they were also high. It's also one of the highest leadership scores as well. But in terms of dependability, number 5 was actually the most dependable. But still, because dependability doesn't really contribute much to the actual weight, you realize that number 1 still had the largest total weighted score in total. And then just zooming in on the sales per customer, we notice that number 1 had the highest sales score. They had the highest sales score at 10, number 1. However, when you look at the sales per customer, that is the sales per customer, that is how efficient they were, you notice that number 5 actually had a higher, and even number 7 was actually the highest in terms of the sales per customer. So they were able to utilize to be more efficient and close more deals as well. And when you also look at the sales per annum as well, you notice that there were more. Number 1 still outperformed the other ones. Still they had the highest sales per annum, followed by candidate number 2. But when you look at candidate number 2's total weighted score, you see that it's really, really low, yet they had more sales per annum. So they were able to produce more. And then the final graphic that just shows the relationship between the sales and leadership ability. So I plotted the sales score versus the leadership score for all the candidates. And so you notice that, there were candidates that were really, high in the sales, but that is high in sales and also high in leadership. So that is number one. You see that they were more of an outlier because they performed very well in sales and leadership, while some candidates performed in one aspect and didn't perform so much in another aspect. So this is how I finally, arrived at choosing number one as the best candidate, notwithstanding that there are some limitations. As I said, some employees were, there's discrepancy in the number of years. Some employees were employed for longer than others, and also there are some measures like the peer review, the ranking, which is purely subjective, which cannot be quantified. But I believe that a total weighted score does cater for all of that, and it evens itself out in the weighted sum. So this is one great example of a project that I can provide to you, how you can make data-driven decisions um, about your employees or sales or performance or even any other aspect which is not limited to HR analytics. Thank you very much.